Let's talk a little bit about this broader conversation around urban farming and urban wellness and reconnecting to the land. We played with this subtitle a little bit, and we really wanted to get some thoughts about to hear from you all your thoughts about the importance of reconnecting to the earth. You know, we live in an urban space. Space is limited. How important has it been that folks are now growing their own food? That there's a wide scale movement to take urban farming more seriously, uh, and to move that toward a broader conversation around wellness. Can you reconnect us to the land? Let me just put it that way. Why is that important? And either of you can jump in whenever you feel ready.
I think it's important. One, and I hinted on it earlier, is that um, our land has, in land period, wherever you are, whatever land it is, has electricity. And our bodies are made up of protons, neutrons, electrons, you name it, we got it, right? And we have the whole periodic table from chemistry all inside of us, plus elements that are not a part of us, inside of us, that are not, that we're not knowledge of, have that are inside of us. Uh, our bodies, uh, conduct power through the land, and the moment that we place any type of seed into the ground, we absorb that power. We absorb all of that power. And Ms. Zakia uh, said it, said it all the way. Being in that garden is is nothing but power, and uh, we that's what people are starting to rediscover, is the fact that we're living in you're living in a world under a president and a political structure that wants this place to be in chaos. But ultimately, you know, people were saying like, well, since we're in chaos, we're gonna reground ourselves in our backyards, and especially in urban dwellings, this is what we're doing. Where it even places like what we call a Newark brick city, majority of the homes have gardens.
Wow.
Like you can walk down the street, and it can be not great homes, not great looking homes, but you'll see tomatoes,
Mhm.
and and this is 90% of the blocks.
Yeah.
You'll see the guys who were, just at the corner store buying, a pint, going back and kind of clipping a tomato.
Right.
So
Right.
it, it's an amazing feat, and it's an amazing journey. And these are some brand new gardens. So just imagine, you know, having power uh, in your hands. You
Yeah.
know, I-
Well,
the that's
yeah. Tell us some of your thoughts about the importance of reconnecting to the land and the earth. You know, give us some of your thoughts.
Well, I totally agree with Manan and what he said. And, it's interesting that I had a phone call maybe about an hour before, we got on this call with one of my elderly neighbors, meaning that she's older than me. She's like in her 80s. And she called with a idea that I thought was just so perfect. She said, Sakia, what do you think if we did something on our block where everybody would have a garden and we would grow food and share the food that we grow, with each other. Meaning that somebody might grow squash, somebody might specialize in tomatoes, somebody might specialize in greens, and then we just share what it is that we grow with each other. And I told her, I said, Miss Juanita, that's an excellent idea. And she wanted to know if we could do it for this year. I said, it's probably too late for this year unless we're gonna, do just fall vegetables. But just in terms of creating that plan and moving forward on that for next year, I told her I'm with her. And she even took it a step further. She said, well, yeah, I think that instead of us just passing out flyers, that we should go to each of our neighbors' house one on one and present them with this idea. I said, Miss Juanita, that's a great idea. So being able to connect, and she just did this a couple hours ago, but being able to connect to the land and then being able to connect to our community is a natural connection that we have lost. There were many people prior, I would say my generation, Yeah, I'm baby boomers. There were many people in the baby boomer generation, black people in particular, that didn't want to have anything to do with gardening or farming because it was so connected with our experience in the South. And many people had to work so hard that they wanted to leave that part of their lives behind. Not everybody, but there were a great majority. And then there were some, like my father, who would always have like some collards or something planted in the backyard. Never made a big deal, out of it. So as a young adult, I never thought about gardening. But what impacted me in terms of gardening was a friend that I had met who lived in Parkland, okay, and which is yeah, Parkland, subsidized housing. And
Mhm.
what she did was she would take the area that was right around her house, okay, and she would plant. And then every year she would expand it a little more because you're not supposed to do that, when
Right.
you live in subsidized housing. But she did. And the housing authority didn't bother her because it was so beautiful. In fact, what the housing authority eventually did was use her garden or her house to show prospective tenants for the housing what you can do in terms of taking care and enhancing your property. I don't know if they still do it or not, but she was the one that got me really interested in gardening. And at that point, I just turned my whole backyard, into a garden. Then I got involved in working, and so I didn't have a chance to pay as much attention to it as I wanted to. But I always knew that once I retired, I would go back, to that. And that's exactly, what I did. So when you talk about connecting to the land, connecting to families, connecting to our wellness, we have a herbal apprentice program where we learn from each other about different herbs. So when not, as you talked about, your grandfather and the role that he played, we should, and many of us are doing the exact same thing. There are many of us that knew, that when this whole COVID thing came up, that, get the elderberry syrup and where to get it from and what other kind of herbs that you can do. My
Right.
grandchildren participated in a soil and something program that we had one year at the garden. My granddaughter got stung by a bee, right? She knew exactly what plant to go to and pull a leaf off of there to go ahead and give her some relief. All right. And she
Bergamot,
was,
right?
that was
Bergamot.
one. I think the one that she used was mullein. Okay.
Okay, mullein,
Yeah.
mullein and bee balm. Yeah.
Yeah. But she knew exactly what to do. She didn't freak out or anything. She just knew what plant to go to and wrap around, her arm for that bee sting, that she had. So again, when we look at what role that all of this plays, in Detroit, they had a huge movement with all these vacant lots. They wanted to go ahead and turn into community gardens. Yes, they need to do that. You
Mhm.
know, the one that Andre Lee Ellis has,
Right.
on Ninth and Ring, and how he has engaged so many of the young men, in that neighborhood in terms of the gardening and the kind of programs that he's able to bring to the garden as a result of the garden being there and those young men being there and having a capture audience. So we can never underestimate the power that gardening and urban farms have. And now with the millennials, that particular generation has really, picked it up. I've watched them in Alice's garden, how they come, how they tended to the land, how they're using techniques that, we may not even know. And
Right.
so again, you can't underestimate the power of connecting with the earth. And Manan, as you said, connecting with the seed, because everything starts from the seed. And being able to take the seed, plant the seed, whether or not the seed is going into the ground or going into your mind, it goes into your soul, it goes into your spirit. And that allows it to grow and develop into what it is that we're seeing today in terms of people really caring not only about their environment, but their wellness and the sustainability.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Go ahead, Manan. You want to say something?
Wow, I was like, that's right.
That's it.
You know, as we enter into the last stretch, I mean, one thing Venus Williams says, just to paraphrase her a little bit, she'll make this point to people who visit the garden that we would not be here were it not for the ability and deep heritage with growing food that Black people have, right? Like
Right.
literally, humanity would not exist were it not for that ability, nor would this country exist. I would love if we can pull this off. I don't know if we can, but Manan, I have a bunch of pictures. I actually got emotional looking at them today, just kind of walking through, starting with these bottles, which look like potions in a video game, filled with delicious juice. I have 25 images that kind of walk through your experience at the Juice Kitchen
Yeah.
and into Shindig. And there's actually a part of the reason I got emotional is that I've seen all these amazing people being in places, which seems long ago. But here's Janine Edwards at Cafe Amaranth.
Go along. Boiler up. We went to college together.
Yeah.
Here you are at Alice's Garden,
Yeah.
holding what's in that gallon?
Purple Haze.
There it is.
Yeah.
That looks like when you first started, you used to deliver gallons of juice to us. We used to buy it. Yep.
Yep.
Here's your next step. So you got started in the kitchen here at Amaranth and this building.
Yeah. Parks Place was. Woo! That's crazy, man.
I just got this from your Facebook. So
It's funny because I had a friend walk in the studs with me, and I had a friend. I mean, he's still my friend, but he's a multi-millionaire, and he said this will never work. I said,
Wow.
Gotcha.
Right.
yeah.
My father, people knew my father, and one thing you can't tell him is something is you can't say can't.
Right.
So you took a big swing, kind of pouring your whole life, your whole future. There's Yvette, Ashley, some great people.
Yeah.
And then, so speaking of can't, here's you canning. Yes, you can. And actually, speaking of which,
That's my dad.
the gentleman who said you can't say can't. I miss this space. I'm you know, and the team and the vibe that was in there.
Yep.
Great energy in the Juice Kitchen, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to, I mean, how revolutionary it was. I mean, really on 17th and North Avenue where the Juice Kitchen was and will always be in my heart. You know, it felt like the kinds of conversations, the kinds of people, kind of weird stuff that would happen in there. Like, who's this guy? What's he doing?
That's me.
Yeah. Get a yoga mat out. Challenging people to detox, to think really intentionally about who they are and what's going into their body.
Man, that was if you go back to that, the two guys I'm holding in my arms, one guy just called my sister and said, I helped him change his life because I had to front on him, and I just stepped on his toes. I said, you're not doing anything, and he said, what do you mean? And we just had this big long conversation. 2 years later, or a couple years later, he calls me. So the other guy, another guy is in Cali, and he's a recording artist. He's also a straight vegan. So he's vegan, and like he basically is. He's a faster. I'm gonna call him a faster because he's like it's like collard greens and water. But it's
So,
cool though.
The Juice Kitchen was this space where you made juice for people, but then it became a place for conversation. It became a place for relationship, which you then sort of leveled up again as you became entwined with the whole remarkable Sherman Phoenix project.
Yeah. I remember the early conversations, Manan, about the Phoenix. Great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Command Central is like, we appreciate the nostalgia, but we only got 5 minutes left.
I think this is
real
just
quick. When we leveled up, we determined that that all things don't stay the same. You gotta change.
Yeah.
And like our lives, we wanted to make sure that stepped to the plate and did something completely different. And we are in our family, just 10 seconds in our family, we want to make sure that we do things 180. About faces, something different, and that's what we agreed upon when my wife and I was to just completely do things that are left field. So,
But we do need to start moving to Q&A, and we're going to start getting some questions from our attendees. But let's start with one that is both simple and complex. Ms. Zakia, what do we need to be teaching our young people? When we're in the classroom talking about food and culture in Milwaukee, what are some jewels that you can provide for us to make sure we emphasize in the classroom with teenagers and college students and even middle schoolers? You know, what are some lessons, man?
I think it should be hands-on, because people learn best, with hands-on. Again, I'll go way back because I remember a time where in school, one of your projects was to grow sweet potato, the leaves from the sweet potato. It would sit in your window for a while, or from potato, just to go ahead and watch that process. So I think that when we look at food, and culture, is that we need to connect to see where food has come from, what it is that you can and cannot do with it. I remember having a grandson one time at a farm, and there's some cherry tomatoes, and I kind of plucked one off and put it in my mouth, and my grandson's like, "Ugh, Grandma, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm eating a tomato." He's like, "That's not a tomato. You get tomatoes from the stores." I'm like, "Oh, okay." That's when I knew I had to have a garden. I needed to have a garden. All right. So the first thing I would say is be hands-on with it and be able to connect, the culture, or connect a food with the culture it comes from. Whether or not we're talking about yams and sweet potatoes coming from West Africa, or we're talking about where it is that rice is cultivated, where it is that it grows. Every food product has a culture that's connected to it. It has a history that's connected to it, and we are connected to that. And so it's something that we need to know. The other question here is what's unique about the culinary scene in Milwaukee is that it is progressing. And I like what Manan said in terms of the changes that, he and his family has made. The culinary scene is progressing in Milwaukee. And sometimes I look up and it's like, oh, wow, there's another vegan chef, which is good. I welcome that. I welcome that. I'm just saying it's not even a matter of competing. It's a matter of contributing, because who it is that I can't reach, maybe somebody else can reach them. And that's the most important thing, is that we do those things that we need to do on behalf of our community so that we be better in it. What do I hope to see in the culinary scene in the next decade? Just more. Last week, Friday, I did a vegan fish fry. All right. And the product I used was banana blossoms. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have never had banana blossoms. But if you tasted that vegan fish I made last week, you would be amazed that it was not indeed fish. Okay? Not at all. So that's what I'm looking for. More creativity, more kinds of things that we can share, more types of food entrepreneurs, like Manan and others.
Manan, if we're in the classroom with high schoolers and middle schoolers or even college students, what are some of the key teachable lessons? What do you want them to know? What should we be emphasizing around these questions associated with food and culture and community in Milwaukee? Give us some of your thoughts, because we do use these very practically. I want to make sure you all know that you're teaching us how to be better educators right now. You're muted. You're muted, Manan.
sorry about that. I think that one of the major teachable lessons I could say to the students of the Milwaukee culinary scene, especially the Black Milwaukee culinary scene, is to start small, is to analyze. I always tell people to break down the smallest item and start there. For example, try to break down in this. I'm a kind of a scientist at heart, but break down the compounds in a Frito-Lay or a Cheeto, or break down the compounds in an apple and why it makes you feel so good when you eat it? Why do doctors tell you an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Analyze those particular anecdotes, but also analyze why food makes a difference or not, or it doesn't make a difference. So I would say try to start small and just work your way out. That's the best thing I could really teach and tell people about food. Never bite off more than you can chew.
Appreciate that.